It was raining on the day my family disowned me. I vividly recall that particular detail. My father's face became a frightening shade of red as the water poured down the windows of Harrison Industries' executive conference room. "Incompetent," he yelled, plopping a pile of documents down on the gleaming table. "Do you have any idea what your mistake could have cost us?" I tried not to cry as I stood there, 22 years old and just out of business school. "Dad, I can fix it. The contract isn't final yet." Preston, my older brother, laughed cruelly and said, "Fix it? You nearly sold our shipping division for half its value. There is no fixing that kind of stupidity." They were referring to an error in a draft contract I had written for the sale of one of our smaller businesses, Harrison Maritime. By mistake, I had utilized out-of-date valuation data that did not account for our most recent fleet expansion. Before any actual harm was done, the error was discovered. However, according to my relatives, I had almost ruined a century of Harrison family business. My father went on, "I trusted you with this," his voice lowering to disappointment, "which is worse than yelling. I gave you a chance to prove yourself, and this is how you repay that trust." I attempted to explain that I had been working 88-hour weeks in order to manage the new tech acquisition and the maritime contract that they threw on my desk, but the Harrison family didn't care. They only worried about the results. We all turned when my mother's voice called out, "Charles," from the doorway. She appeared more like a CEO than the socialite she feigned as she stood there in her immaculate Chanel outfit. "The board is waiting." My dad adjusted his necktie. "We'll finish this discussion later." However, we didn't. I was summoned to my father's study that night, the space where 3 generations of Harrison men had made the choices that established our family business. Old oil paintings and leather-bound books appeared to look on disapprovingly as my father handed down his decision. He said, "You're done here," without introducing himself. "The board has lost confidence in your judgment. Your position at Harrison Industries is terminated. Effective immediately." It seemed as if someone had hit me. "Dad, please. It was one mistake." He refused to give me a glance, saying, "A mistake we can't afford. You'll receive 6 months severance. After that, you're on your own." "You're firing me? I'm your daughter." Which is exactly why this hurts so much. At last, he looked directly into my eyes. "You're not just an employee, Evelyn. You're a Harrison. We trusted you to live up to that name, and you failed." From behind me heard my mother's voice. I hadn't heard her come in. "We've arranged a position for you at your uncle's firm in Seattle, far enough away that this incident won't reflect badly on the family." Startled, I turned to look at her. "You want me to leave New York?" She said with scarcely a movement of her flawlessly painted lips, "Want has nothing to do with it. The decision has been made. Your flight leaves tomorrow morning." "And if I refuse?" My dad's voice grew stern. "Then you're on your own completely. No severance. No connections. No family support. Your choice." The parents who had encouraged me to pursue business school and instilled in me the value of the Harrison legacy since I was a young child were the ones I looked at. They were now ignoring me because of a single error. "Some choice," I said to them. That night, only one member of the family defended me. As I was leaving, my grandpa, Walter Maddox, who had transformed our local shipping company into a multinational corporation, burst into my father's study. Anger darkened his aged features. He snarled, "Charles, you fool," at my dad. "You have no idea what you're throwing away." My father, however, remained steadfast. "Dad, the board has already." "The board?" Grandpa asked with a sour laugh. "You mean those yes-men you surrounded yourself with? The ones who forgot what built this company in the first place?" My granddad was more irate than I had ever seen him. His face softened as he turned to face me. "Evelyn, dear, come stay with me. We'll sort this out." However, I was already trembling. The grief was too acute, the humiliation too recent? No, Grandpa. They've made their choice. I disregarded my mother's meticulously organized Seattle arrangement and left that evening. I would be able to start over somewhere that wasn't surrounded by my family with the 6 months of severance pay. I was unaware at the time that my grandfather had already started a process that would not be made public until 10 years later, when his will would completely upend the Harrison family. I used my personal credit card, which would soon be my only credit card when my business accounts were frozen, to check into a hotel that evening. I opened my laptop and sat on the cheap flowery bedspread, gazing at the draft contract that was supposed to have ruined my future. However, something wasn't quite right. In my short tenure with Harrison Industries, I had worked on dozens of contracts. I was aware of my own writing style, preferred formatting, and phrasing rhythm. This was a unique deal. Little details like the font selections, spacing, and even parts of the text were incorrect. I retrieved the original file from my encrypted backup drive with shaking fingers. Though modest, the variations were clearly visible. My work had been changed by someone before it was posted. I had failed because someone wanted me to. I reflected on my brother Preston's sly smile, his rapid condemnation of my mistake, and his positioning as the sole capable heir to the Harrison empire. The words of my granddad replayed in my mind. You don't know what you're discarding. Perhaps I did, though. Perhaps I knew just what had happened, and why. I shut off my laptop and went to the window to observe the city lights as they flickered through the rain. My great-grandfather startled the business community 10 years ago when he gave my grandfather, not his older brother, management of Harrison Industries. It appeared that our family's history kept repeating itself. It buzzed on my phone. My grandfather texted me. Nothing is as it seems. Watch, Evelyn. Hold on. Study up. I inhaled deeply before making a choice that would influence the ensuing 10 years of my life. Seattle is not a place I would flee to. I refused to silently fade into oblivion. I would observe. I'd hold off. Above all, I would discover the full extent of this betrayal. My family was unaware that their error was going to turn into their worst nightmare, something not even my grandfather could have foreseen. Because there was a secret clause in the contract I had truly written, the one that had been changed without my knowledge. A minor but important element. One that wouldn't be revealed for years. A detail that would allow me to take command of Harrison Maritime's most precious resources at a moment when the family most needed them. I grinned at my image in the window of Rain Street. They believed they were imparting failure lessons to me. Instead, one about underestimating the wrong person was about to be taught to them. As I was drifting off to sleep, my grandfather sent me the following text. Keep in mind, my love, the queen is the most potent piece on the board in both business and chess. Even though some idiots believe she is merely a pawn. His meaning was unclear to me at the time. However, I would. How I would, oh. Waiting 10 years for retribution is a long time. However, I learned from my grandfather that in the business world, patience was more valuable than wealth. He was correct. I built my cover, a modest Boston consulting firm, during the first year. Close enough to monitor Harrison Industries but far enough away from New York to evade family scrutiny. My granddad kept sending me mysterious texts. I'm learning something new about our family business from each of them. He would text, keep an eye on the shipping manifests for the Singapore route. Or, take note of the terms of the Anderson merger. I was able to grasp the larger image with the help of tiny breadcrumbs. The error that led to my termination was not limited to the maritime sector. The purpose of that contract was to demonstrate to the board that I was unfit to serve as its leader. My own test was concealed in the tiny print, which my brother Preston was unaware of. See subsection B of clause 23.4. Tucked away in the technological details. The original signatory retains the first right of refusal on all Pacific Rim shipping routes and related infrastructure in the event of division restructuring or asset transfer. For years, the provision had no meaning, until Harrison Industries made the decision to completely reorganize their shipping business. Which was precisely what they were intending, based on my grandfather's expertise. Layer by layer, I meticulously constructed my new life. Phoenix Maritime Solutions, my consultancy business, focuses on port management and shipping logistics. Being tiny yet effective, we developed a reputation for handling issues that larger companies were unable to take on. In the meantime, my brother Preston was leading the life of the heir apparent. I observed from a distance as he made big promises about Harrison Industries' future and accepted prizes in business journals. Every picture showed our parents smiling. An ideal corporate family. The only person who appeared to see through the facade was my grandfather. During one of our discreet meetings, which are always held in tiny cafes outside of Manhattan, he informed me that your brother's latest acquisition is built on sand. He is using short-term gains to leverage the company's future. I stirred my coffee and nodded. Smoke and mirrors, the expansion into Asia. Grandpa's eyes were sparkling. Because he never realized that the true value was in the routes rather than the ships, he is using the Marine Division's assets as collateral, believing they are worth more than they actually are. I gave a small smile. Exactly. He took his briefcase out. Now, about those route licenses coming up for renewal. The next hour was spent going over documentation that would have raised my father's blood pressure. In addition to educating me, my grandfather was teaching me how to reclaim what was properly mine. The years went by. Although I took care to avoid the limelight, I built Phoenix Maritime Solutions into a reputable brand in the field. My staff members were carefully chosen, devoted, and paid fairly for their discretion. They were all unaware of my affiliation with Harrison Industries. I had sporadic but never committed relationships. My brother had received the information directly from the last man I trusted with my true identity. After that, I maintained the same level of discipline in my personal life as I did in my professional one. I never replied to the required Christmas cards my folks sent to my Boston address. They included a note every year expressing how well Preston was doing and how the business was flourishing under his direction. I kept all of the cards in a motivation folder. Then things began to change 3 years ago. The flaws in Preston's flawless exterior started to appear. Missed payments to big suppliers were the first rumors. Then there were reports of irate customers and delayed supplies. Although it was still high, Harrison Industries' stock price started to fluctuate in an unsettling way. My grandfather told me, "Your brother mortgaged the company's future," at what would be our final meeting. Now those bills are coming due. He appeared more worn out than normal that day. It should have been a warning sign to me. The board is starting to ask questions, he added. About the maritime division. Especially the restructuring plan. Will trigger my clause, I muttered. If they try to sell off or reorganize the shipping routes, I'll have first right of refusal. He grinned with pride. The clause they never noticed, hidden in the contract they used to destroy you. My grandfather suffered a stroke 2 months later. It was swift, according to the doctors. Not painful. In the official statement, he was hailed as an industrial titan who turned Harrison Industries into a major force in the world. Of course I went to the funeral. I watched my relatives act out their parts as mourning heirs from the rear of the church. Preston's eulogy about studying business at our grandfather's knee was heartwarming. That almost made me laugh aloud. Grandpa had only taught Preston how to claim credit for other people's labor. Despite seeing me, my folks didn't come over. Perhaps they felt embarrassed. They were probably afraid I would make a scene. Prior to the reception, I drove directly to my lawyer's office. She told me, "Your grandfather's will reading is scheduled for next week." He was very specific about the timing. Not surprised, I nodded. My granddad was meticulous in every way. All major shareholders and family members are required to attend in person, she said. No proxies allowed. Grandpa is typical. Whatever he had planned, he would want everyone to see it. The following week was a haze of getting ready. Every contract, document, and piece of intelligence my grandfather had shared over the previous 10 years was examined by me. Phoenix Maritime Solutions was in the ideal position. High cash reserves. Credit lines are safe. Ties with important actors become stronger. My entire wardrobe from my Harrison Industries days cost more than the charcoal gray suit I wore on the morning of the will reading. I had my hair done elegantly. My cosmetics look perfect. The terrified 23-year-old who ran away in the rain 10 years ago would not be visible to anyone staring at me. A notification rang on my phone while I was driving to the lawyer's office. Early trading saw Harrison Industries stock fall 2 more points. There were rumors that they wouldn't be able to fulfill their commitments for the upcoming quarter. Like everything else in this scenario, the timing was ideal. After parking, I took one final look at my reflection. A copy of the original maritime contract, the one with my concealed clause, was in my purse. Documents demonstrating every error, every blunder, and every careless choice my brother had made while pretending to be corporate emperor were in my briefcase. I also have 10 years' worth of information regarding Harrison Industries operations stored in my mind. Information that would soon become extremely useful. As I entered the elevator, I watched the floor numbers increase. My thoughts kept returning to my grandfather's final text. Before the first piece moves, the game is won. The floor was filled with well-known faces, frozen in disbelief, as the doors opened. My dad dropped his cup of coffee. My mom's flawless mask broke. And my brother Preston, the heir apparent and golden child, became white as a sheet. Calmly, "Hello, family," I said. "Shall we begin?" Tension crackled in the Caldwell and Associates law firm conference room. My parents were seated like royal advisors on either side of Preston, who was at the head of the table, just as I had anticipated. The other seats were occupied by the board members, who all avoided looking at me. My grandfather's personal lawyer of more than 4 decades, Harold Whitmore, cleared his throat. "Before we begin, I should note that Walter was very specific about the order in which his will should be read. He left detailed instructions." Yes, Preston cut in. "Can we get on with it? Some of us have a company to run." I suppressed a smile. That phrase would be delightfully ironic in a few minutes. With a deliberately neutral demeanor, Harold Whitmore opened an envelope. "Very well. This is the last will and testament of Walter Harrison, Sr." The first few things were typical: preparations for his employees, charitable donations, and personal goods of different family members. When he gave his antique jewelry collection to my mother, she used a monogrammed handkerchief to wipe at her eyes. Given the amount of the philanthropic endowments, my father gave a nod of approval. The eagerly awaited section finally arrived: Harrison Industries' future. After a moment, Harold Whitmore adjusted his glasses. "The situation is complex." Preston bent over. "Complex how?" The succession plan was clear. "As CEO?" Harold Whitmore clarified, "As interim CEO, instead. Your position, like many things, was temporary, pending the reading of this will." There was silence in the room. As Harold Whitmore went on reading, I saw my brother's face lose color. I leave my grandson Preston with these wise words. Without comprehension, power is like a ship without a rudder. You wanted to be in charge, but you never understood how our business operated. You pursued expansion without acknowledging the basis upon which it rested. And worst of all, you deceived your own sister in order to benefit yourself. Preston leaped to his feet. "This is ridiculous." "I didn't." Sternly, "Sit down," Harold Whitmore said. "There's more." He produced another document, which I immediately recognized. My first maritime agreement. 10 years ago, a contract was deliberately altered to discredit Evelyn Maddox and force her removal from the company, he stated. "I have here the original document, along with proof of who made those alterations. An intriguing hue of purple had appeared on my father's face. That's ancient history. The board's decision was based on falsified evidence, concluded Harold Whitmore. Evidence that Preston provided after tampering with his sister's work. The board members started whispering to one another. A few of them were eyeing the exits, I noted. In addition, Harold Whitmore went on. The original contract contained a clause that becomes particularly relevant now. Evelyn, would you like to explain? Everyone looked at me. I smoothed my suit charlset and gently stood up. Clause 24.4, subsection B, gives the original signatory me first right of refusal on all Pacific Rim shipping routes and associated infrastructure in the event of division restructuring. I took a moment to let the impact of what I had said sink in. Which means? Preston yelled, we're not restructuring the maritime division. Actually, I said, taking out my phone to show the stock notifications for the morning. You are. The Singapore deal you announced last week, the one meant to save the company from the debt you've accumulated, it can't happen without restructuring the shipping operations. I hesitated just long enough for the quiet to grow more intense. Which means you need my approval. I completed. And you won't get it. Chaos broke out in the room. Members of the board were already on the phone, perhaps phoning their attorneys. My mother's flawless makeup was ruined by real tears streaming down her face. My dad appeared to be having a stroke. Over the den, Harold Whitmore's voice rose. There's more. A large folder came out of his briefcase. Walter Harrison's majority shareholding in Harrison Industries is hereby transferred in its entirety to his granddaughter, Evelyn Maddox. The ensuing hush was deafening. In addition, he added, all voting rights associated with the family trust shares are to be exercised by Evelyn Maddox, effective immediately. Then Preston fell back in his seat. This can't be legal. Dad, do something. However, our father was focusing on another document that Harold Whitmore had set down on the table, a thorough financial report of Harrison Industries under Preston's direction. Your grandfather spent the last 10 years documenting every mistake, every poor decision, every instance of mismanagement, said Harold Whitmore. He worked closely with Evelyn to understand the true state of the company, while you were all busy believing your own press releases. Setting my own folder on the table, I took a step forward. Phoenix Maritime Solutions, my company, has spent years building relationships with the clients you've been neglecting. We've secured contracts you didn't even know were available. With a hollow voice, my father whispered. And now you own us. No, I clarified. I own what's mine. What should have been mine 10 years ago, before you chose to believe lies over truth. Once more, Harold Whitmore cleared his throat. There's one final item. A letter Walter wanted read aloud. He started reading to the group after opening a sealed envelope. Boardroom showmanship and titles don't give you power. It comes from knowing your people, knowing your business, and knowing yourself above all. You ignored the one person who really knew what made Harrison Industries function 10 years ago. You prioritized flash over content. Greed instead of progress. Betrayal instead of loyalty. Evelyn not only made it through your treachery, but flourished in spite of it. She studied every facet of this industry while you were all watching Preston play CEO. While you ruined your fortune, she created her own prosperity. Think of this as my last business lesson. Who can seize power the quickest is not a sign of true leadership. It all comes down to who can use it effectively. The business is yours, Evelyn. Make it what it ought to have been from the beginning. If you can, the rest of you should take a lesson from this. With equal parts love and disappointment. Harrison, Walter Sr. It was Preston who spoke first, his voice piercing with incredulity. You planned this. All of it. You and Grandpa. No. I abruptly interrupted him. You planned this the day you decided to forge documents to destroy my career. Grandpa and I just made sure you'd face the consequences. I looked around the board. My team will give you a briefing on the restructuring plan we have prepared, and a car is waiting outside to transport you to Phoenix Maritime's offices. Those that want to stay with the organization will be given the chance to demonstrate their worth. Those who don't. I grinned. Well, I hear my brother will be looking for work soon. With little resistance, my father said, "You can't just walk in here and take over." Actually, I remarked as I gathered my paperwork. That's exactly what I'm doing. The shareholders' meeting is in 1 hour. I suggest you all decide whose side you're on before then. I walked toward the entrance and then stopped. Oh, and Preston, clear out your office by 5. I'm moving in tomorrow. When 10 years of poor management are exposed, the following weeks are exactly what you would anticipate. It was a field day for the journalists. Harrison Air returns. Personally, I thought the headline "The Greatest Corporate Comeback in History" was the best. The move was widely approved by the shareholders after they saw the thorough plans my grandfather and I had created. After stabilizing, Harrison Industries stock started to rise. As expected, Preston attempted to file a lawsuit. His case collapsed when our father testified about the document fraud from 11 years earlier, finally confronting the reality about his chosen heir. With lunch invites, shopping offers, and subtly implied advice that we should all move forward as a family, my mother made her own attempt at reconciliation. I turned down all the invitations. After burning, certain bridges ought to remain ashes. I stood in my grandfather's former office, which is now my office, with a view of the city a month after assuming power. The contract that began it all was on my desk, framed as a reminder that sometimes losing is actually winning under a different name. It buzzed on my phone. A message from an unidentified number. A picture of my grandfather, taken the day he discovered Preston editing my work, was inside when I opened it. All these years, he had held on to it, waiting for the appropriate time. A note that was supposed to be conveyed after his passing was written beneath the picture. The Queen has assumed her position. My beloved, checkmate. Checkmate. I touched the old contract's frame and grinned. The family who expelled me believed my narrative was coming to an end. Rather, they had only penned its inception. And now, at last, they knew exactly what they had discarded. The sweetest retaliation is sometimes quiet rather than loud. Building your life in peace while the people who deceived you look on from afar. I simply got up without screaming or fighting. And it was sufficient. Take your time to recover if you're carrying pain. Establish limits. Select growth. To proceed, you don't require their apologies. Have the people you trusted the most ever deceived you? How did you overcome it, or are you attempting to do so? Tell your tale in the space provided below. Here, you're not by yourself. Strengthening, healing, and reunification are all possible here.